halfway there. This is episode number 38 of the show where we have honest conversations with ordinary Christians about today's Christian experience. My name is Eric Nevins. I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me today. You can get show notes and information about each and every show, including links to anything we talk about, and you're going to want to check out a couple of links from this episode today at the halfwaytherepodcast.com. You can go straight there. It'll take you to the site and find the show notes page for this particular episode. Well, my guest today is an old friend, somebody that we've known for a good long time. And actually, she and her husband were at seminary while my wife and I were at seminary. And that makes us just kind of like old war buddies. That's an experience that you just go through. There's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and you go through it together. And when you come out on the other side, you're just friends. And so it was great to reconnect with her. We talk a lot about her journey. Obviously, we talk about how she came to Christ, some of her struggles with God, and some anxiety that she felt. And she's very open with us about that, which I have to tell you, I think is really not just brave, but important to speak about. I think a lot of people don't quite know what to do with anxiety as a Christian, because we talk so much about, peace and God bringing, joy and whatever, but it does happen, and it's important to pay attention to. And so what I like about this story is the way that God led my guest to deal with that. And she talks about how she ended up on a national show, a reality show, which is pretty cool. We got to watch her go through that, and she'll talk all about that experience, which is really fun. So let's just get right to it. This is my conversation with my friend Jill May. Well, hi, Jill.
Hi, Eric.
Thanks for doing this. I'm really excited. It's been a little while since we've had a chance to connect, but I'm glad that we're doing it now.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to reconnect and chat.
Yeah, this will be great. Well, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing right now, and then we'll go back and talk through your story a little bit.
Okay, sounds perfect. Well, I'm currently a health coach, and I'm working on my personal training certification. I'm also a motivational speaker, and kind of what launched me into that is I was on a national television show called Strong, and basically the show was taking 10 of us everyday women, pairing us with trainers, and we went through like a physical transformation, and we also competed in weekly challenges where we would get eliminated as teams. And in the end, I won the show. And it was national. So it kind of launched me into a unique platform.
Uh-huh.
And so now that's what I do. I motivational speak, and I health coach other women.
Yeah, well, you kicked butt on that show. You were...
Well, thank you. I tried.
We didn't miss an episode. We were always watching because we knew you, and we were rooting for you.
Oh, thank you. I needed all the rooting I could get. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that was. It looks hard. It looks hard from my couch where I'm sitting, but I cannot imagine what that was like.
I almost still can't imagine it.
Yeah.
I really didn't know what I was getting into, to be honest. And I remember walking into the arena the first night, and I'm thinking, Jill, next time, you will read the fine print. I was like, what are you doing in an arena?
Right. Yeah, it was fascinating. I bet people can find that on NBC or whatever on their website, I'm sure.
Yeah, or YouTube.
Sure.
Or Hulu. I'm sure you could go Google and binge watch Strong. It's kind of a fun, inspirational show to go back and watch, really.
It was fun. I enjoyed too. It was Gabby Reese hosted it, right?
She did.
I had heard her on Tim Ferriss's show with her husband, Laird Hamilton, and so I was already kind of a fan of her, and so that was kind of cool to just see see you guys there, but
Yeah, she's kind of the epitome of just a strong woman who's really beautiful, like, inside and
uh-huh.
out, you know? Yeah, it was awesome to work with her.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Well, that's a great kind of picture of where you are today. Where did you grow up? Let's go back and dig in through your story a little bit.
Yeah, so I grew up in a little rural town in Minnesota called Zimmerman, Minnesota. I graduated from a nearby high school, Elk River, Minnesota, kind of 45 minutes northwest of Minneapolis, St. Paul area.
Okay. And what was your family like? Like, were you guys? So I think most people picture rural. You had a truck. You had. You,
We did have a dirt driveway, I can tell you that much.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we lived on land, we lived in the country. My mom was a school teacher, my dad was a mailman. Just kind of a very normal middle class lifestyle. Although I was always envious of my friends that lived in town because I felt like they had friends right next door and I did not.
Oh yeah.
So,
A little further.
yeah, so
What?
kind of what you picture when you picture rural.
Yeah, Minnesota. I
Mhm.
picture a lot of cornfields and lakes.
That's pretty accurate. Lakes, trees. There are a lot of trees, which
Yep.
no mountains. Definitely no mountains.
Right. So was it a Christian family or was that?
We definitely grew up going to church. We definitely grew up going to Bible camp. I would say I was raised in a Christian family. Now, one could debate how devoted, we were or what that really looked like. But overall, I would say, yeah, I grew up in a Christian home.
Okay. So tell me, how did you come to Christ then? Like, was that as a little kid or as you grew up?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the generation where every summer camp, every
Ah.
every year we'd go to summer camp and we would rededicate our life to Christ, just to make sure,
Right.
And,
Been
I
there.
can't say for sure. Yeah, I can't say for sure if I really knew Christ at that age. Part of me wants to believe I did, but I don't know for sure. I would say, um, when I really came to Christ, it was a very unique experience for me. It wasn't at church. It wasn't at a rally. It wasn't talking to anyone else. I kind of began to get a stirring for the Word of God when I was either a junior or senior in high school, kind of in that time frame. And I remember just questioning a lot of things in life, and I just started thinking, like, why are we here? And I just started to get some of those deep questions we ask ourselves. Everybody does. And I remember in my bedroom one night, I opened the Word, and it just came alive to me, and I really, really believe that is the moment right there when God became real to me,
Hmm.
and I started to realize my depravity and to realize my need for Christ and His atonement for me, and so I would have to say my true moment of conversion was, if you want to phrase it that way, my moment of conversion was in my bedroom in high school
Yeah.
with my Bible by myself. So.
Yeah, which is great. That's interesting. So, you probably had heard the gospel all your life, right? And then this kind of was a moment when you um gave, maybe would you say gave your life to Christ? Like, would you put it that way? Like passionately, or kind of took ownership? Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, ownership.
Yeah, maybe take took ownership is the right way. I mean, I can't pinpoint if that's the moment that I went from like hell to heaven.
Hmm.
I don't know that. It might have been when I was a child, but I know for me that's the moment that God became real. That's the moment I became aware
Yeah.
that I needed to repent, that I needed to ask Christ for forgiveness of my sins. And I would say the high school is the moment. That moment in high school was the turning point for me.
Yeah. So what did that do for you? Like what
Oh, yeah, that changed the whole course of my life.
yeah.
I mean, all my friends started everyone was in the mode of talking about, at that period in normal life, you're talking about where am I going to go to college? What am I going to be when I grow up? What am I going to do? And I really remember the only thing I had on my heart with that at that time was I just want to go study the word. I just wanted to learn more about the Bible. That's it. Like
Mm.
I couldn't even process like what I wanted to be when I grew up. Like I'm just like I want to be a mama and I want to study the word. Like that's
Uh-huh.
it.
Yeah.
And so really it changed. I mean, that directed my course because then I went off to a little Bible school in northern Minnesota. I began to study the word. I met my husband there, and that's really dictated the rest of my life.
Yeah. Who's a great guy. I just want to
He sure is.
add.
Oh,
We,
he
we,
keeps me on the straight and narrow,
yeah,
that's for sure.
well, yeah, I'll just explain for everybody. It's so Jill and her husband were at seminary at the same time we were, and so that's how we know each other. We're good friends.
That's right.
So
Some of the best years of our life,
a-
Denver Seminary.
absolutely challenging for sure,
Yeah.
but definitely, definitely it's like going through war together, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, even though we may not have
Right.
seen each other for a while. We kind of have those
We're
scars.
just
Yeah.
we're just all bleeding trying to get through, that's all.
Right. Anyway,
Hmm.
interesting. Okay, so then you had met Dan there in college. Well, tell me, what was your faith like in your early years? It sounds like you were really hungry for the word.
Yeah, I mean, initially, that's all I had to focus on. That's all I wanted. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's a proper word is hungry. I was just hungry. Like it was the truth to me. Christ had become real to me. So tell me more. If this is going to direct everything I do in life, if this is who I am, if this is where I have found my identity, like I want to know. And so I would say, my next year probably because then I entered marriage and that always throws in a different factor. But
Yep.
I would say the year after I came to know Christ, the year or two, because I think I was in high school still a year, I just had a hunger. That's the best way to put it. And I had a commitment to studying because when you're hungry, you have to feed. And so, I committed to studying the word and it was very alive and relational to me.
Yeah. Yeah, those are cool moments when you read something like that and it just sort of opens up and all of a sudden you see God in a whole new way.
Totally.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I wish those were there always.
yeah. Well, that's part of the journey though, isn't it? That's what I love
Totally.
about what you described, just your hunger, because that's also part of the journey. That's I think that's one of the ways you can tell when somebody has given their life to the Lord. Like
Yeah.
he's there because he just sparks this, oh, this is good, and you
Mhm.
want more of it. I hear that. I
Yeah.
hear that all the time, and I just always love it because
Mhm.
it's a precious time that doesn't, it's not always that way, but it is good when you're learning it.
Yeah, it's precious. You're right. That's a good way to put it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Cool. So now you said something, and I want to see if I picked this up right. You said so you got married, but you almost made it sound like you guys got married like early on in college. But I don't remember. So
Yeah, we did.
did you? Okay.
So I was there for a year. I was 19 and Dan he was going into he had completed 3 years of college. So we got married when he was going into his 4th year of college and I was going into my second. I was 19 and he was 23.
Okay.
Mhm.
Wow. So you were younger than we were. We were 20 when we got married,
Were you
and
you guys were both 20?
yeah, we were. So I'm only
Yeah.
about 6 weeks older than Jody.
Yeah, I think I remember a conversation with Jody about that. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
Mhm.
that's a unique challenge.
Yeah.
I'm being nice.
I love that stated so eloquently, Eric. A unique challenge. I'm taking that one. We
Uh,
have a marriage retreat coming up. I'm taking that one.
Perfect.
Unique challenge.
Just tell everybody, listen. That's all I want.
Yeah. Oh.
So, yeah. So tell me about that. How did that? I don't know. Or tell me the next like sort of phase of your journey. What?
Sure. So Dan and I met each other, and it was a very small school. So we got married after knowing each other for 5 months. And I would say our first year of marriage was very, very rough. And then reflecting now after being married 17 years, I would say probably our first 10 years were very rough. But at the time, um, the year one was hard. We hardly knew each other. We were so young and immature. And, I mean, as anyone that's married knows, it's merging two lives. It's now you put your own needs and desires on the back burner. Things that you felt you were selfless in before, all of a sudden you
Yeah.
you have to practice, and um it doesn't always go well. So yeah, we finished out college, and then our first probably, I would say our first 7 years of marriage, Dan worked different jobs. His plan was to go into pastoral ministry right out of college. And I still look back to this day and I think, wow, I talked him out of that. I tried as long as I could to talk him out of pastoral ministry. And um, yeah, that didn't work, because when God has a plan for you, he'll get you there. So um, and then I think we rolled into seminary after 7 years in the workforce, him in the workforce. Wait, would that be right? Yeah, then we rolled into seminary. We're there for 3 years. Dan had a series of jobs. I was raising small children. Dan was a store manager. So, we had some major challenges early on, as any young couple I think does. You're trying to find your way.
Yeah.
You're trying to find how to make it financially, how to care for each other, how to bring kids in the mix, how to keep your love alive, or to even build your love first.
Right.
And so, we kind of battled through that, and then we went to seminary, and then out of seminary, then we went into ministry, and then that's a whole nother season. So,
Yeah.
and it brings its own challenges. And so now we've been in ministry for 8 years, and almost 8 years, and that brings us to, wow, 18 years of marriage.
Yeah.
So
Which there's
um,
there's a point where the numbers start to add up and you think, "Oh man, that's incredible,"
that's a long
Double
time.
digits.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your personal experience of God. So, like, you mentioned that marriage was tough in the early years, and we don't have to go into that deeply, but if you don't want to, but but what I'm curious about is, how did that change your view of God, or how
Hmm.
did how did that
Hmm.
what did those, if that's the appropriate
Sure.
part? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you want to know my journey of God through all this journey of my
Yeah.
life. Yeah. Um, I like to describe. I almost feel guilty at times saying this, but it is what it is for me. Um, I like to describe my journey with God as a wrestle.
Mm,
I can't say, I know people go through seasons of feeling like God is absent. And I kind of resonate with that, but I've always known he's there. And in the early years, I had the hunger, and then life comes in, and you get busy, and I've always felt God with me. Um, I just I battle it out with him, like,
mhm.
all the time. And I repent, and I'm honest, and I cry, and I laugh, and I yell, and but I would say, throughout everything, like, my journey with God is a wrestle. Um
Can you give us an example?
sure, yeah, I'll give you an example. Um we lived in Minneapolis, St. Paul um for three years. Our kids at that time were going to a very, very very great school. We had a great community. Um, the school was a very top-notch school in Minneapolis, St. Paul. The academics were awesome. Everyone was loving. I love city life. City life gives me life. And then Dan got a call to come to a real church. And I thought to myself, well, I can't hide it. I really don't want to go. And I just nothing about it made sense to me. I was going to have to pull my kids. I was going to have to locate to rural, which is, city was my thing.
Yeah.
That's just I loved it. And so I was mad. And I thought, okay, God, whatever. But at the same time, I don't it's not like I had a bitterness towards him in my heart. I was just mad. And I thought, but you know what? If my husband is called there, I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna deny this. And so it was like I was obedient and I was willing to move, and I was obedient and willing to come here, but I wasn't gonna hide that I really didn't want to. It was what it was. Um, and so that's the kind of wrestle I go through, and then we got here and we went through some major turmoil in our first year or two here. And I thought, are you kidding me? First of all, I didn't want to come here. Then I came here, Lord. And now this is what you do. Like, this is what
Yeah.
we have. And I wrestle it out with him. And then I repent of my attitude and I cry and he comforts me. And and then I went through a series after that where I had some major anxiety and panic attacks. And you know, I, some mornings I couldn't even get up, and it was then again it was just like I give, like I'm pinned. But there again I was in my wrestle mentality, but it was like I'm pinned. I have nothing. Okay, I give. Um, but I knew God was there, and I knew He was delivering me, and gonna deliver me and bless me, and just continue to be with me. But it was just that ebb and flow and the continual wrestling match. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Okay.
yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I think that's more normal than most of us give it credit, So
You're telling me I'm normal. Oh, good.
yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
yeah, I mean, partly to encourage you and partly to encourage you, that we were listening. Like, I just think that there's that, sometimes we feel like when we wrestle with God that it's not, that we shouldn't do that, right? We're not a good Christian if we do that.
Yeah. Right.
One of my favorite things that I've found lately is, it's been a few years, but I just keep coming back to it lately, is the book of Habakkuk. Have you ever read that?
Mm.
Like,
Yeah, I'm sure.
yeah, well, right. Sometime, right? It's a minor.
Yeah.
He's a minor prophet. No, it's it's there because you memorized the books of the Bible in Awana when you were
Yep.
8 or whatever. But he's so good. I did a show about this. I can't remember which episode. Maybe it was like 14 or something. But it was all about his relationship with God, the way he wrestles, and he's like, God, I'm mad about this, and then God responds, and then he's more mad about it. And so he says, I'm just going to sit here and wait and see what kind of answer you're going to give me. And I'm just going to wait. That's it. Right? Like, really?
I can't wait. Eric, I'm doing an Old Testament study right now. I cannot wait for Habakkuk now.
Oh, yeah. It's fantastic. When you read it and you go, really? He did that. I'm going to say, and we have no idea how long that was, right?
Yeah.
It could have been 5 minutes. It could have been an hour. It could have been a year. Who knows?
Yeah.
But he wrestles, and then eventually God responds, and it ends with Habakkuk worshiping. So he has this relationship, and I think it's one of the most important passages for just observing like a normal relationship with God. That there's a lot of good, there's prophecy in there about the Babylonians coming in and that whole thing, but
Sure, yeah.
I think that the whole thing of him wrestling with God is really foundational and fascinating as a relationship. So
Yeah.
when you say that, what I hear is, yeah, just because that's normal,
Yeah.
So
It-
I think that's
yeah.
interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, and I'm so excited now to get to Habakkuk, but I loved it ending in worship because I can even attest to that now that you mention it, it kind of triggered my journey here because, you know, if we would have never moved here, I would have I tracked this one day and I was like, this would have never happened. This would have never happened. I would have never ended up on strong.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
would never be doing what I'm doing right now, which is, and it brings me to a place, like you said, of worship because it's like, oh my word, Lord, and it's like, it's humbling to just see his hand. And so it's like, I wrestled all the way here. But yeah, and when you mention the worship part, it's like, yeah, like when I really look back, like it can only bring me to that place of worship because he's just so sovereign over the process. He's been so sovereign over the process.
yeah. Yeah, and that's really the picture I think you get in Habakkuk. So check that
Cool.
out. But it's awesome that that's what you find in your own life. Um, well, take us through some of those things you mentioned. Things that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't moved out into the rural Minnesota. Like, can you kind of walk us up to that to where I know that strong was formational for you, like a big deal. I'm curious
Hmm.
about the spiritual element of that.
Sure.
So can you maybe walk us through sort of leading up to your decision to apply for that show?
Sure. Yeah, I love that. Um, 14 years ago, and I won't list everything in every year.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
14 years ago, Dan and I sat down together and we wrote out a list of like goals for our life. Okay. And so some of those goals had to do with family, some had, finances, some had different, career goals and stuff like that. And at that time, I had a goal. I think it was the time when Survivor had come out, and I was like,
Mm.
I think it'd be really cool to compete on a reality TV show. And I just had that in my spirit, and I'm like, okay, And so I remember I wrote it down, and so years go by, and you forget about your goals, or you wonder if they're just goofy and everything like that in your dreams, and you just maybe they're not meant to be. So anyways, years go by. We raised the kids. We moved to Wilmer, and actually several of the other goals on my list had come to fruition, which was kind of a cool testimony of faith to me. And I do believe goals are God breathed. I believe dreams are God breathed a lot of times, or they can be. And so, I had I was not in a good place when I decided to apply for Strong, obviously. And I had remembered, I like had a moment of remembrance, just kind of thinking back. I was pondering a lot of things. All my kids were in school. I had just finished my bachelor's degree. And we were here in this small rural town, going through some rough things. And I just started thinking about some of my dreams, and I remembered, like, hey, remember you wrote that down, like, I wonder. And so I started browsing randomly. Doesn't everyone do this?
You
I started
Googled it.
yeah, browsing casting pages, because it had just been a dream of mine. I wanted to compete on a reality TV show. I don't know why. And so I came across this ad on, I think it was NBC's website, and it was an ad that was it was from the creator of Biggest Loser, but you could tell the show wasn't that. It was more like, do you have 20 to 30 pounds to lose? Like, are you a mom that has 20 to 30 pounds to lose? Do you want to get fit, healthy, strong? And it just sounded very appealing, like, wow, that's cool. Um, and I fit the criteria because I had kind of stopped. I mean, I've been into fitness a lot over the years. It's always kind of been a part of my life, but at that point, I had kind of stopped caring about all aspects of my being. So, um, sorry for the depressing
Yeah.
moment
No.
there.
No. It's good. Like
Yeah,
like
it was
that.
it was
That's
a
part of it.
yeah, it was a dark place. I just had stopped caring, and so I was probably 20 pounds over where the doctors thought I should probably healthily be. And I thought, man, I'm gonna send my stuff in. So, I sent my stuff in, and then we're actually walking out the door to teach vacation Bible school, and I get this call from California, like Burbank, California, and I'm thinking, my first thought is like creditor, like, what do we owe? Do we owe something? Because like I don't think I know anyone in Burbank, California. Um, and I answer it, and this casting agent talks to me and wants me to send pictures in my bikini just to see if I fit the criteria. And I'm thinking, this is so funny. I'm out the door to teach Jesus to little kids. Hang on, let me go get in my bikini and take shots for you. It
Right.
was a little
That's
interesting,
unusual.
but yeah, unusual. But in that industry, they needed to see, they needed to make sure I fit the criteria for the 20 to 30 pounds. And so that kind of began the journey. That kind of was my journey leading up to Strong. Did I miss anything there that you wanted me to cover?
No, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. So yeah, it sounds like even just spiritually, this was sort of a down time for you. Was God feeling distant at the time too, or was it a wrestling time?
Um, I felt very, um, okay, you might get me to start crying here, Eric.
Um, not my goal, but
If there was ever a time that I believed in the doctrine of suffering, whatever that means, I remember that term being thrown around a lot. I thought, this is it right here. Um,
mm,
when I was in my deepest, darkest rock bottom moments, I literally had times where I thought I was going to die from because I was experiencing panic and anxiety, and I remember laying in my bed thinking, I can't deliver myself from this. Like, I
mm,
cannot rescue myself. So God was not far from me. At this point, I was suffering, but God was was in one of the closest places I've ever had him at
mm,
that point. Because at that point I knew he was it. Like, he was my only hope. He was going to be my only deliverer. Um because I was in such mental anguish, because anxiety and panic is a mental
yeah.
issue. And I was in such anguish, and I thought, God is the only one that can deliver, and I know he's gonna. And it's like, even the times when I wasn't delivered yet, it was like an issue of, I know he's gonna. Like, he's coming for me,
Wow.
he's coming for me. And no, I felt God. I felt him on the move, and I felt him coming for me. And I felt like he was coming. I think of that one song where it's like, break open the skies to save those who cry out his name. And that's what I kept thinking. I felt
Yeah.
very, very confident in God at that time.
Wow. That's interesting. That
Yeah.
even though it was probably one of the most difficult times of your life, you felt like God was present and close.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe it's the fact that how God designed us like that. I don't know. That was my only hope.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything else.
Yeah, well, you clearly had that relationship with him as a foundation that had been laid in the past,
Yeah.
because some people have those experiences and go, God must have abandoned me.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess, and I think maybe that's where it comes down to the choice. I
Right.
mean, you have to have faith in God, or yeah, of course you can deny him. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess where maybe that's where the choice does come.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the anxiety, and if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. But was there something specific that was causing that? Do you think, or was there? And I'll tell you why I ask before you answer that.
Yeah.
Because I had like a period after seminary too, a period of like just severe anxiety and
Mhm.
panic attacks. I ended up getting an MRI one day to check out my heart because I thought I was gonna die.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
but which is crazy and was expensive anyway.
Yeah.
But
No, you're not alone. I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
but for me, it was feeling like I'm not gonna mount to anything. What am I gonna do?
Mhm. Mhm.
What is this? Okay, I've got a family and I've got this job, but this isn't a great job. It's not really going anywhere. And what if I feel like I'm supposed to do something more with
Yeah.
the time that I got? And so
Mm.
that was really was really a struggle for
Mm,
me, but I was curious if you had something specific that was like
sure.
that, or, you know?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Oh, I appreciate you sharing that. Two things that I can narrow it down to for me personally, and one of them aligns kind of even with what you're talking about or what you're saying that I can kind of deduce here. Um, like through my experience with it, I feel like obviously panic and anxiety, it's a symptom of something that's going on that we maybe aren't aware of or we haven't taken care of or we're believing or um and for me, um I it was self-protection was my first thing. I was building walls up because I had been hurt in personal relationships, and I thought, no, that's not happening anymore. And so I began to self-protect, and I started to
Mm,
build walls up. And so what happens when you build walls? Well, you become isolated. And I think that's where the enemy gets us. Isolate us, make us, feel like we're the only ones. And so that was one thing for me was I began to build walls up around me emotionally. I didn't want to be hurt again. And then the second thing beyond that, and this kind of maybe correlates with kind of some of your struggle too, is that I began to believe lies.
yeah.
Um, and so, some of the lies were just like I would feed in my mind what other people were thinking about me or different things that were never going to happen in my life or that I think I even can resonate with you on like I wasn't going to amount to anything or this my stage I was going to be in was forever. And so for me, I had these walls up and I was isolated. And then to make matters worse, the only thing I was allowing in was lies and negativity. So what are you going to do when that is? I mean, if you have a closed in surface and it's just lies and crud in there, it has to come out, you know?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was the manifestation was the anxiety and the panic. And I really think that believing lies is a huge deal,
Yeah.
in causing that.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. So you start to dream again, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And suddenly you're sharing bikini pictures with strangers.
Yeah, 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 right. Yeah, that they were gonna go national. I mean, I didn't process that at that time.
Right. You didn't have any idea about that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what?
Yeah, so then, things moved pretty quickly. I was kind of flabbergasted that I got called back on an they had me do a video audition, and so I sent it in, and they called me back, and then I went out to in I think it was June, I went out to, like, semifinals where you get quarantined in a hotel, and the last day you're there, I got brought in front of, like, 20 NBC producers. I had about a minute to give a spiel of why they should choose me. Um, and then,
What did you say?
yeah, you want to know what I said?
I do.
I said, "Hi, I'm Jill from Minnesota," and the room busted out laughing.
That's all you had to say?
That's all I had to I was for a moment I'm thinking, what did I just say? And I'm like I had this moment of, oh my goodness, Jill, you live in a bubble and really you have this thick accent that you are unwilling to admit.
Well,
um
you didn't say
yeah,
Minnesota.
I live in Minnesota. Yeah. I remember one gal asked me, what do you want from this? And I don't even actually remember what I
Yeah.
said. I was just it was just nerve wracking. I remember that.
Well, you convinced them.
Yeah, the accent convinced him.
That's awesome.
Oh.
That's
Yeah, so they and then so that was June or July and then came back home and I remember thinking, okay, I knew if we were gone, we were going to be if they would have called me, I was going to be gone for 9 to 10 weeks. So I went into kind of prep mode with my kids, getting my kids ready for school, the beginning of the school year, how crazy that is. And I'm
oh yeah.
thinking, I could be gone from these guys. So I was kind of planning like I was going to be gone, even though I didn't know that at that point that they were going to pick me. And then I think I got a call about 2 weeks before, and they said, "Yep, we would like to cast you." And I had 2 weeks to get myself ready. So that was that.
Did you do like 3,000 crunches in that 2 weeks, or is that like that's what I was thinking? Like
No,
that's what
I
I'd be doing.
no.
Like I'm gonna.
I thought I did not read the fine print very well. I thought I was going to like a fitness retreat, like we are going to, I knew it was going to be work, but I was used to working hard, working
Yeah.
out. I did not realize like when they said competition, I was thinking like cute little dumbbells that you would, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking puzzles or I
Wow.
don't know. I
Not
was
running up
not thinking,
that big obstacle course or whatever.
oh man, the tower.
Oh, the tower.
No.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was unreal. I thought this is crazy. A week ago I was carpooling kids and you want me to do what? Oh, but
Fascinating.
yeah.
Okay. Well, but something happened during Strong for you. Like,
Yeah.
so tell us about that because I've heard you talk about it a little
Sure.
bit, but like, can you just share that? Because I think that's taking you from kind of where you were to where you are, obviously. But
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly the point you've heard, but I know one of the big things for me was I think sometimes in our own lives from people we love, from people we're around all the time. I know for me personally, um, I go through seasons where sometimes we're unwilling to just listen or hear what people are telling us. And so sometimes, like for me, I respond when people look me dead in the eyes and tell me the truth. But I don't always respond good. Like at that point, I wasn't responding good to people in my circle. I wasn't. And so it was almost like I had to be removed. But there was a point when I had a very, very godly trainer, thank God that I was paired with him. And I remember at one point, we were training and that was the theme there. It was kind of changing our body. He was an NFL strength and conditioning coach. He had been, and so he was getting me in shape and working with me in that way. But I remember we were running sprints one day, and he looked me square in the eyes, and he's like, "Jill, you are an aggressive person." And and I thought it was one of those moments where it was like somebody just spoke truth to me,
wow.
and it clicked in my heart. And this happened to me in high school too, with a teacher that I very much respected. He had spoke truth to me at that point, and I respond to people like that. So some people are like, "What's the big deal?" Yeah, he told you we're aggressive, but it was when someone notices something or calls out something in you that you just have been blind to, or you have been unwilling to hear, or just no one has pointed it out, or and from that point forward, it was like, wait a second, and I started being like, wait a second, that's how God designed me. And then it was like
Mm.
this process of kind of like self acceptance, of really realizing like, hey, it's okay to be who you are. Like, why would you want to be anything else? But we do that. We tend to conform, or we don't want to let people down, or I've suffered my whole life with people pleasing syndrome. And, at that point, it was just like, no, like this is who I am, and however that looks going forward is how it looks. But the point is, I'm going to accept who I am. Truth was spoken to me. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to live into it. And really, that was a defining moment for me.
Wow. So he was seeing kind of into your character, something that
Hmm.
you sounds like you were not willing to go there on because let's be honest, when I think of people in rural Minnesota, they're all nice, right?
Yeah, that That's the deal is that yeah.
I'm from the
Minnesota nice,
Midwest. Yeah,
right? Yeah, you're an Iowa boy,
that's
right?
right.
Yeah. It's Minnesota nice. We don't offend people. We take things in instead of confronting a lot of times. And also, I'm a pastor's wife, so
Yeah.
sometimes there's a connotation that goes with that, like, hey, take it, be kind, don't speak. And there's a place for that, but I think the most honoring to God, no matter who you are, what part of the country you live in, what your vocation is to live into who He's designed you to be. And let's be honest, we need aggressive people in the world or nothing, I mean, we need all
Yeah.
types, but the point is we should be willing to live into really who He's designed us to be.
Right. And as somebody who then is able to attack and conquer goals, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
It's funny that you say that because I was in this conversation with this lady at church the other day, and I was explaining to her this really challenging thing right now in my life, and she goes, "Oh, you should like that, right? Like you're going to attack that head on." And I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, she's right. I would be dying if I didn't have a challenge to attack, you know?"
right. You're like, yeah, so I'm gonna go
Yeah.
kick its butt now.
Yeah, right.
Very good. And you could, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, some days.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I think I love that because I don't think we talk enough about being who God made us to be um,
Yeah.
as believers. I think we have this language of to be like Christ,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
is not necessarily passive. I mean,
Right.
even in his teaching, like you can see, okay, put up the obvious examples,
Mhm.
turning over tables in the temple. Okay, that's
Mhm.
that's beyond aggressive. That's
Yep.
borderline abusive, right? But but even in his teaching, you can see times when Jesus would be very upfront, right, with people, or even call names. You whitewash tombs or
Right.
whatever. He would let people know what he thought of them, and
Yeah.
that's who he was, and that was not sin. We can say that
No.
confidently. So
Right.
I think that applies to us as well. Being who we are, and not being jerks, affecting the change that God wants to see in the world through us.
Absolutely. I mean, because you really you can look at his creation and how diverse that is.
Right.
Different parts of creation have different purposes. I mean, I had someone say to me once, like, an aggressive event, Jill, formed like the Grand Canyon. You know,
That's right.
yeah, and but yeah, I mean, and God gifts us all in differently, and we're all to work together, and to be honest, we have an aggressive enemy. Um,
Yeah.
and so to think that we're never supposed to be aggressive or take things on is kind of a lie in itself. We have an aggressive enemy, but to be aggressive back, but the best counter to that is to live into who God made us, because ultimately, by the Spirit, through His leading and obedience to Him, and embracing who we are, we can be victorious in that. And I mean, yeah, that looks different for each one of us, but definitely there's places for aggressive people.
Right.
A
Right.
shout
Which is
out to all
awesome.
the aggressive people. Oh,
They'll probably all email me now, but that's
yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, if you want me to come do a seminar just on that, Eric, I will.
All right.
Aggressive,
I
trust
like
me.
it.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Work with
Yeah.
this guy who his whole thing is designed, and so I'm in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always go back to Ephesians. We all know Ephesians 2:8 and 9, right? For by
You have to
grace.
remind me because
Well,
I am a
okay, I'll say
terrible
it.
I don't remember anything. I don't remember. I wasn't trained in Awana,
Oh,
so
you weren't. Okay.
my address now my kids are in it, but my address as far as knowing the exact book and
Yeah.
verse is not I'm not very well versed in that. So
Okay.
remind me.
I will. So, because I just pulled it up. That's on my
Yes.
computer. So, we know this. For by grace you've been saved through faith. This is not of your own doing. It's the gift of God, not the
Mhm.
result of works, so that no one can boast.
Yeah.
But verse 10 says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God
Mm.
prepared beforehand that we should
Mm.
walk in them."
Mm.
Right. So that's the design
Oh,
piece, right? There's things that God wants you to do that
yeah.
he created just you to do, you know?
Mhm.
So what I loved in your story is that this is how you discovered it, right? This is how you discovered,
Yeah.
so God planted those seeds. I mean, way back all those years ago when you said, "I want to be on a reality show. That looks like fun."
Yeah.
You know? God
Yeah.
knew 14 years later or whatever it was that you would be that you would that goal would drive you to become the person that he wants you to be.
Oh, yeah, I love that. That's so true. It's so true, and, even as you were saying that verse, I was thinking, you know, the isolation factor that sometimes we can get into is that we just think we're not special or we think we're not unique, and it's like that verse totally contradicts that, I mean,
Mhm.
hey, he designed each one of us for a good work, and the experiences in our life are shaping us for that. And yeah, I definitely now see that in my own life, as you kind of just pointed out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Mm,
Wow, love that. Well,
mhm.
so some of those works, and I just want to at least mention this. So some of those works are that for you are that you went through strong, you won the thing, which
Yep.
which was awesome.
Yeah.
You should have heard our basement. Like I'm sure wherever you were was awesome, but we were cheering for you, screaming.
I'm so glad. Thank
Um,
you.
which I'm sure was the most important point in the for you was our
Yeah.
basement. But the
Yes, hey, you know what?
but the
Uh,
but that but so then that kind of led you mentioned this earlier that kind of led you to this to helping people with their fitness.
mhm.
S-
Yep. Yeah, I do. That is one thing I just have a heart for now is, taking women and just helping them be the best they can. And I don't want that to sound cliche because it ends up looking very unique for each woman. Um, and so I do this program called 21 Days to Excellence, where basically I take women through 21 days of I give them some basics as far as nutrition, as far as fitness. We go through goal setting, and then they have to actually report to me for 21 days everything they eat, every workout that they do, and they have to take pictures and send it to me. So I coach them, and we actually it's done all via text, and I've coached women from New Jersey. I've coached women, from around the country, and it's a cool thing because I journey with them for 21 days straight, and I watch these women via like social media, via the phone. I mean, but we build a bond, and I watch them transform their habits, and I watch them transform their thinking, and as a result, they drop weight usually, and then but more than that, it restarts them like on a better journey. A lot of my gals just in 21 days from shifting their focus, they lose 8 to 10 pounds, and it's empowering for them,
mhm.
because it's okay. I can do this. Um, and so that's one thing I do, and I love to do. And so yeah, that's one of my things I'm doing for women now. Another thing I love to do is I love to come in and give motivational talks. I like I've told you, I respond to truth, and I love to come into settings and I love to just speak truth. I love to dispel lies. I love to see people busted out of their shackles, whether it's in their mind or body or soul. And so those are my two things I'm really passionate about right now is leading women through 21 days and then just coming in and motivational speaking to people.
Awesome.
Yeah, did I get off on a tangent there, Eric?
No, that's perfect. That's what I wanted to hear because I think that I'm really thrilled to just hear that your journey then didn't end there, right? Then
No.
you found your own confidence
Yeah.
because of something that your coach said, and then you're turning around and sharing that with other people, and giving that same confidence to other women, and or people that you're speaking to. So
Yeah.
I think that is really awesome. We didn't really talk about this, but I don't want to take too much of your time. But there's a huge spiritual piece to the physical body. That
Hmm.
the confidence that you have, the way that can just erode your spiritual feeling about yourself, and even how you feel about God. It matters. It matters how
Hmm.
you handle that. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that because, um, you know, I actually had to have a Hollywood producer really convince me of that,
no,
which is ironic. Yeah.
that's awesome.
Um, yeah. Isn't that awesome? I just thought, no, I think, but the way he described it to me, I was like, he just convinced me
What
that,
what
like,
what did he
the
say? Like, how did he convince you of that?
like he basically, and here it was, the truth, and part of me still is wrestling through this a bit. Here goes my wrestle. But
Yeah.
I mean, he basically told me, you can't show me someone, Jill, that's doing poorly, very poorly physically, and tell me they're in a good place mentally and spiritually.
Oh, wow.
Um, and like, but he said it in a way more eloquent
Uh,
way. And
well, no, that's great. That isn't that right though?
it's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Um, it's just true, and I think part of me not wanting to believe it is that I'm still working. I'm just still wrestling through that concept, But it's true. There is really no denying it, and the more, I mean, I've lived it. I'm continuing to live it. I think some days I just don't want to admit that it's true because, I want my Cheetos or whatever. But
Right.
But yeah, I think, I mean, we know our God. He's a painter, he's an architect. He weaves us so intricately from the womb. How in the world is the mental, physical, spiritual not connected?
Yep.
How in the world is it not? And so really it's like, duh, Jill, yeah, but I love it. I'm like, yeah, it took me a Hollywood producer to convince me of that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So
Sometimes, you know what? Sometimes the truth is easier to see for people that maybe we don't think of, as being inside our little Christian bubble. But
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. No, it's true. It's true. Yep.
awesome. Okay, so if people wanted to get a hold of you, how could they do that?
Yeah. So my social media platforms would be the best way. On Facebook, my public page is going to be Jill May or like at Jill May NBC Strong.
Okay.
I'll get you that link, Eric, because I can't remember exactly how it comes
Sure,
up.
that's okay. I'll be sure to link it all up in the show notes on this
Yep. So I'm
page.
on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Mostly active on Facebook and my public page on Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect.
So,
Thanks, Jill.
yes, thank you so much for having me. I hope your audience is blessed.
Jill, thanks so much for sharing your story. I just enjoyed our conversation. Definitely, you were super vulnerable about some of the things like anxiety and the things that you went through and how you discovered who you are and what God has created you to do. Thank you so much for doing that. Friends, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you want to connect with Jill, I want to encourage you to do that because maybe her story has inspired you to go on a fitness journey of your own. I know that it's something that's been on my mind since we talked. And so maybe if you want to just connect with her and you want to be ready for any kind of challenge or opportunity to work with Jill that she has, you can find that on her social media platforms that she mentioned. So on Facebook, you want to look for Jill May NBC Strong. You'll find her there. On Twitter, it's Jill May 80 at Jill May 80 on Twitter. And then on Instagram, it's Jill May _ NBC Strong. And I've put links to all of those in the show notes of this page. Again, just go to halfwaytherepodcast.com. You'll find the page if you scroll down just a little bit or hit the archive up at the top. you'll find the next show. Hey, friends, would you just share this with somebody? Whatever your week looks like, I'm sure that you run into somebody who could benefit from just listening and being encouraged by this conversation. So if you do that, I'd appreciate it. And as always, you can hit me up at halfwaytherepodcast.com or on Facebook at Halfway There Podcast, or just at Eric Nevins. Hey guys, thanks a lot. And next week we'll have another episode. So till then, keep the faith.